YTBC, what's the deal? So yesterday, man, I was on my old school shit. I was watching some old fighters that I used to watch growing up back in the day. So I was watching Michael Nunn and just watching, some of his fights. The same theme kept reoccurring. I almost forgot about this kind of, man, because you watch so many fighters, you forget about guys, stop watching their fights. So I was watching Michael Nunn, and just the way the announcers were talking about Michael Nunn, if you would have closed your eyes, you would have thought they were talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr. Now I know, Floyd just fought against Berto, and we know the theme that goes with Floyd is people think he's boring. They don't like his fights. They think he's a runner. And I see a lot of fans say that he's the most hated boxer, especially his hardcore fans. They think that Mayweather's the most hated boxer of all time. And we can argue that. We can go back to, where things were really bad for black fighters, to the Jack Johnson era. We can take it there, but we don't have to go that far. We can just go Michael Nunn, because I think the comparison is pretty much on accord, man. Let me just read an article to you real quick. This was October 18th, 1990. And this was a fight he caught a lot of flack, Michael Nunn. He was pretty much a lifelong middleweight. He fought Marlon Starling, man. Starling was a 11-year, going into that fight, either 10 or 11-year welterweight, a great welterweight. And this was a legit, he moved up 2 weight classes. Starling didn't get any type of in-between fights. He didn't see how the weight felt. He went from welterweight right to middleweight. And he was a lifelong welterweight. So first of all, for Starling to even do that just shows how great of a welterweight he was. But let me read an article about that fight. It says, let me see here. The title of it is Curry to Find Out If Nunn Will Run. So this was going into the Donald Curry fight. And I advise you guys go watch that fight and listen to Ferdy Pacheco and Steve Albert talk about that fight during the buildup of that fight. It's a Showtime event. And you would have thought Pacheco was talking about Mayweather, just talking about how much he runs. There was even, if you go and look at old articles, there's even budding jokes about Michael Nunn, should be in the sequel to Footloose, and I think the other movie was Flashdance, movies from the 80s, just pretty much making fun of this dude and his style of fighting. He was just so inconsistent, because he would have a fight against Sambu Kalimbe and knock Kalimbe out. Kalimbe is a tough customer. Nobody's knocking Kalimbe out back then. Then you have a performance like he did against Iran Barkley, where he pretty much just wouldn't engage. He won the fight, but it's kind of difficult to fucking watch, man, as a fan. But let me read this article. It's from Tom Mahone for the Daily News sports writer, October 18, 1990. Okay, so it says, just call Michael Nunn the Rodney Dangerfield of the fight world. He is the current IBF middleweight champion, and he owns an unblemished 35-0 record with 23 knockouts, but he gets no respect. Well, not as much as he should anyway. His critics claims he's a runner, not a fighter. He refused to mix it up with Iran Barkley last August on a 12-round decision. He ran away from Marlon Starling last April, but managed a 12-round majority decision. And people thought after that fight, because you got to remember, man, during that late 80s, well, first of all, Nunn's run was about 87 to about 94. I know he fought past, but I'm talking about, I know he fought past 94, but I'm talking about his run, in my opinion, was about 87 to 94. And he just got, they did not like the way he fought against Curry. Like I said, not Curry, but Starling. Because the dude moved up 2 weight classes, man. And, Michael Nunn back was on the ropes. He was trying to fight off the ropes. It just looked weird watching it, man, because Nunn is 6'2", 6'1". Starling's what, 5'7"? It just looks weird watching Michael Nunn fight going backwards against Starling. But then, Nunn was it was more inconsistency with him, man. But let me read some more articles and just show you the hate, because I hear a lot of fans think that Mayweather's the most hated fighter ever. So I'm just giving some of you Mayweather, and just fans in general, just go back and look up some Michael Nunn. Just read articles about how they used to call him a runner, and like I said, this is late 80s. So Michael Nunn wanted that fight with Hagler, Hearns, and Leonard. I remember him being at fights. They'll have him on a telecast, and I believe he was on the telecast for, damn, man, was it Leonard, Hearns too? I'm not sure. Maybe that was Hagler that was on that telecast. But I remember Michael Nunn being at the fights. I can't remember exactly what fights he used to be at all the time, but he wanted those big money fights. Let me see here. And for some of you that don't know, Michael Nunn did get 24 years in prison. He got caught up buying 2 pounds of cocaine from an undercover cop. I believe that was 2002. And I think his trial went on. He got convicted in 2004. They gave him 24 years, man. It's funny because there's guys out here molesting children and shit, man, and they don't get that much time. But that's another story for another video. Let me find some more articles about this. Just bear with me, y'all. I'm trying to just look for some more articles to read to you guys because, okay, like this article. This was from the Inquirer, April 14th, 1990. It says, the heading of it is, Passive Nunn says he won't change his style versus Starling. So this is going into the Starling fight. Okay, so let me read this article. It says, neither boos nor jeers nor managerial turmoil will stay Michael Nunn from his appointed rounds. Okay, so says Nunn, the middleweight champion of the IBF. Despite widespread criticism of his passive performance against Iran Barkley in August, he says he sees no reason to alter his style, which has brought him to 34 professional wins and no losses. When he fights Marlon Starling tonight at the Mirage, Starling is the World Boxing Council welterweight champion. So even going into the Starling fight, critics were like, he might go in there and run. So they just thought this dude was a runner, man. So for some of you Floyd fans, just do your history a little bit, man. I'm trying to help y'all out. There's other guys that they consider runners back in the day, man. So Floyd he just adds to that list of, fans and media not liking guys like this. I don't mind the style. Sometimes it's not the most exciting to watch, but everybody fights differently. But the thing with Nunn, like I said, he just wasn't consistent. Because then he'll knock Colin Bay out in one round, and that was actually a unification fight, but Colin Bay got stripped before the fight. Let me see here, y'all. Let me find another one. Curry to find out. Prince William. I mean, there's just so many, man. Some of them are the same. But they thought this dude was a runner, man. And there was a lot of people that were happy as hell when he got beat versus James Toney. I believe the Toney fight was right after the Starling fight. I remember my uncles were happy as hell. They did not like Michael Nunn. They hated his fighting style. I remember this fight. We had the Nunn and Curry on VHS. I don't have it no more. That's why I watched it on YouTube. But watching it again it just reminded me, like, yeah, I forgot how much people hated Michael Nunn's fighting style. But then he would have exciting fights like the James Toney. Even though he lost the fight, it was a good fight. So it's like when he opened up and appealed to the fans, he put himself in danger zone. But sometimes he will win those fights. But I would love to see him put himself in the danger zone against Iran Barkley. That would have been a good one if he would have fought that style of fight. But just trying to give y'all some game, man, on other fighters that were hated because of their style, whether you call it running, whether you call it sweet science, whether you call it a boxer mover, whatever you call it. There's other fighters that felt the heat from the press and the fans because of their style. YTBC, I'm out. Michael, second to none.